Hi, good evening again. And I want to welcome you all to another episode of Jazara Bradley Effect Live. And very excited to be here. Tonight's title of our show. Ooh, my laptop tried to fall on me. That's crazy. Tonight's title of our show is Margo Knew Something Was Wrong. Nyree, Malachi, and the Truth Nobody Saw. So, again, welcome back to another Thursday. We had a great time last week discussing Malachi and Nyree. Some viewers were a little split on Malachi and Nyree, and that's okay. We looked at a lot about their marriage, and was their marriage built on love or was it built on red flags? Yes, so we discussed that. If you missed last week, go back and check it out. This week, we are discussing someone else tonight. We are talking about the woman who may have seen everything more clearly than everyone else. And that woman was Margo. Margo is not a woman who reacts quickly. She watches, she listens, and more importantly, she remembers. So before we go any further, and you can type your answer in the chat, it's a yes or no question. Before we go any further, do you believe mothers usually recognize warning signs before their children do? So put your answer in the comment. Now, me personally, I believe as a mother, we see some red flags that our children don't see. But let's get into Margo. A lot of readers love Margo and are drawn to Margo. Hi, Jennifer. You said, of course. Of course. Moms do see those red flags. And as, growing up, a lot of times my mom would say certain things and I'd be like, what is she talking about? And come to find out, of course, she knew what she was talking about. It was just me who needed to catch up. But moms, they know. So tonight we're going to get into Margo, who is Nyree's mother. Margo is the kind of woman who understands people. And that's not because she studies people, but because she looks at patterns and she analyzes patterns that she's able to understand people so well. She observes quietly. She protects her family. And she trusts her tuition. Margo is not the type of woman that's going to be over explaining her intuition and her instincts. She's not doing that. But with Margo, when something doesn't feel right, she knows something is off. And so I would ask you, have you ever had a feeling that something wasn't right, something was off, and later on you found out that that feeling you were having, it was correct, but maybe you dismissed it as something else. And so you didn't act on that feeling. You kind of disregarded it and brushed it off. But later on, you found out, yeah, I was right when I said such and such and such didn't feel right. I was right about that person or that situation. So has that been your experience? And so now let's talk about Margo. Again, remember I told you that Margo is the type of person who's not going to react quickly, but she watches. And so in this next part that I want to talk to you about is Margo watching Malachi. And even in matrimony, Margo has some things. The book Matrimony, My Love Won't Last Forever. Book 1, Matrimony. Margo has some issues with Malachi in this book. And her behavior seems to suggest that she's acting out emotionally towards Malachi, but that's not the case. She's not acting out emotionally towards Malachi. She does act out. I'll give her that. She does act out, but it's not emotionally. The reason she acts the way that she does towards Malachi is because she studied him. And some of the things that she's able to pick up on with Malachi, and I want to hear your thoughts about this, is there's a difference between charm versus authenticity. Oh, let me check the chat real quick. Yeah, we don't always use our discernment either. Matters of the heart, Jennifer said. And she says Margo is a trip. Absolutely. Agree with both of those. Margo is a trip. And sometimes we don't use our discernment. And so Margo's able to look at Malachi. Most people look at Malachi as being charming. Margo is able to say, there's a level of charm, and then there's a person who's not authentic. And so, whereas people are thinking Margo is being extremely harsh, she's able to see, hey, this guy has a character flaw. You guys are thinking that he's charming. He's inauthentic. Then she looks at a pattern of behavior. Sometimes charm hides things people don't want to notice. Do you think charm can make people ignore warning signs? Let me know in the chat what you think. Do you think charm can impact people's ability to see warning signs? Okay. Another issue that we have with Margo as we progress through Matrimony, you'll see Margo in My Love Won't Last Forever. Book 2, Chaotic Bliss. Another thing you see is there's a generational perspective. And Jen Rose said the charm is a cover up. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That is one of Malachi's maybe superpowers, but also a flaw. A superpower because he can use it, and for people who are not savvy about what he's doing, they fall into that trap of being charmed. Oh, excuse me. But Margo wasn't having it. Margo has seen a lot in her life. And so there's this generational perspective and difference between Margo and Nyree. Margo grew up in a time very different from Nyree, of course. And so Margo came from an era where there was patience in relationships, observing character over time. They believe something important in Margo's time, which is love is powerful. But there is another thing that Margo also believed. Sometimes love ain't enough. So I'd like to ask you all, let me know in the chat with a yes or no. Do you believe love alone can sustain a marriage? Do you believe love alone can sustain a marriage? If you read My Love Won't Last Forever Matrimony, You will see what my characters think, and I'll just leave it at that. You will see. With Margo and Edwin's marriage, you will see how that pans out. Oh, excuse me, I apologize. And you will see with Nyree and Malachi how that pans out as well. Faithy says no. Yeah, I would say love is very important, but there's some other things that have to be intact. And Margo is very steadfast on sometimes love ain't enough. Like they say, love don't pay the bills. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a bigger story here as well. Jennifer Rose said no. Yeah. A lot of people, when they look at the My Love Won't Last Forever series and we talk about Margo, they think that Margo's story ends with Nyree and Malachi. And initially, that's what it was going to be. Just Nyree and end with Nyree and Malachi. Margo had, when I first wrote My Love Won't Last Forever, Matrimony, it was another book back in 2008. My Love Won't Last Forever, Matrimony is a rewrite of the 2008 book, Love Don't Live Here Anymore. And so in that initial book, you got Nyree's story and you have Margo's story and her backstory. And when I rewrote the book and released it in 2024, I took Margo's backstory out. I kept everything that was pertinent to the matrimony story, but I took her backstory out. And in 2025, I was getting a lot of interest, and I was on Ellen Ann Sutter's show, and she was asking about Margo. She was very interested in Margo and her story and what was going on with her story. And so I rewrote Margo's story and brought it out as a short story. And the name of that book is She Never Forgot, She Never Forgave. It's a short story and it is available on Amazon. And it's available in ebook on Amazon and other platforms as well. So I'm looking at the chat. I know no romance without finance. Yeah, back to that topic, Jen, about love being enough to sustain a marriage. And some marriages, they do suffer, you know. No romance without finance. No no honey, no money, no honey. Yeah, so that can be an issue. And so Margo's story is in the short story. She never forgot, she never forgave. We see some things in Margo's past, memories that she carries, experience that shape how she sees people. And that's where another story unfolds, that you now have her backstory and understand why she acts in the way that she acts, but it's not in the matrimony book and it's not in the chaotic bliss book. It's in the book She Never Forgot, She Never Forgave. And this is a story about a woman who remembers everything. So I'd like to ask you all, and let me know in the chat, do you think people ever truly forget betrayal? Can they get over betrayal? And I'll just tell you, for Margo, no. When I say this woman remembers everything, I mean she remembers everything. It's like she has a mental ledger of the people who have done A, B, C, X, Y, Z, and she keeps a mental tally of it because she is going to make sure that she repays them for the wrong that they've done to her. So Faithy says, no, it usually turns into revenge and resentment. Yeah. And in the book, She Never Forgot, She Never Forgave, you see how Margo executes her payback. And is you never see it coming, her payback. And she's so smooth and calculated. Margo is the kind of character who reminds us that experience changes how we see people. And sometimes the person who understands the situation first is the person everyone ignores. And what I mean by that, in matrimony, Margo tries to tell everyone about Malachi and who Malachi is because she knows Malachi. Not that she knows him personally on a level like that, but she's seen Malachi time and time again. So the person that Malachi is, she's already encountered him years and years ago in Tallahassee, even though she's now living in Gary, Indiana. She's met Malachi's character before. That is how she's able to know who he is, because remember, I told you she understands patterns, she analyzes pattern, and she doesn't forget. Jen says, I'm an elephant. Yeah, Margo is as well. She doesn't forget. And it's just only a matter of time when she's going to do what she's going to do. Sometimes the past holds answers to questions nobody has asked yet. And it's the same thing with Margo. Margo was trying to tell her family about Malachi and give advice and pointers and so on and so forth. And all her family could think was, you've amassed so much wealth and you're disconnected with people. Now, this woman was a psychiatrist, but for them to say that she was disconnected with people, she didn't understand people, was like really crazy. If anybody understood people and understood the psychology of how people operate, it would be Margo, but nobody wanted to hear what she said and they just dismissed her. So tonight I will say to you, if you want to understand more about this Margo that I speak of, if you want to get more into her story, I recommend that you read She Never Forgot, She Never Forgave. Because some women forgive while others remember. I want to thank you all for joining the Jazara Bradley Effect Live tonight. Hello, Hallie. Hello, Gullible Dreams Production. Thank you all for being here tonight. And so I will see you all next Thursday. Thank you so much. Good night.